There are many signs pointing towards the Isles being in the game. Not only that, but they're a perfect opportunity to bring Warcraft back to a place we recognize. These Isles, they're on Azeroth. They'd been planned since the late 90s, early 2000s, and they could be the perfect place to push forward the cosmic lore while still keeping it grounded in the dragons, whose veil of secrecy you and Rathian can pierce with today's sponsor nordvpn.com/Bellular Gaming, code Bellular Gaming. Their Cyber Month deal is where you will get a 2-year plan plus an extra month with a huge discount. Now, why get a VPN? It is simple. You can get a VPN if you want to watch content from another region on a big streaming service. If you want to do that, you can just use Nord's 5,000 plus servers to choose your location and use the internet as if you are there. Also, privacy. Your internet service provider won't know what sites you're actually using if you're going through Nord, so they can't sell your browsing data to advertisers, nor can they prioritize some of the sites that you use over others. They've got more features too. There's Nord Locker for storage and Nord Pass for some password management as well. Now, their app and browser extension are super easy to use across all your different devices, and as I said, you'll get a huge discount and a free month at nordvpn.com/Bellular Gaming with that Bellular Gaming promo code. So, thanks to them for supporting the lore, and with that said, let's get into it. Dragon Isle speculation has been circulating for so long, and although we thought Blizz was going to pull the trigger in 8.3, there has been nothing solid since. So, let's take a look at all of these hints and the state of the more evil dragons, because there's a lot going on. Now, we put a stop to the Twilight Dragons, and we thought that was that. But then, in the Legion Order Hall campaigns, the shamans end up fighting a Twilight cult who were revealed to be led by a Twilight Dragon. And in this, there's even a whisper from Sinestra, you know, the consort of Deathwing. So, she's still out there somehow. Perhaps the biggest clue here, though, is that, when encountered, the Twilight Dragons told us that the dawn of Twilight is approaching. Of course, remember, the Hour of Twilight was N'Zoth's big plan to corrupt the world. Now, add to that the Twilight Avenger telling us that there are more eggs deep beneath Grim Batol, and you quickly realize that at that point in time in Legion, they really were back in the scene. Now, many of those eggs would hatch by patch 8.3, but those who set that plan into motion, mostly Sinestra/Syntharia, they're still at large. There's that. Now, turning to the Infinite Dragonflight, Morozond is trapped somewhere outside of time, and Nozdormu is yet to become Morozond. Yeah, confusing, I know, but hey, it's time. TLDR, Morozond is going to be a threat again. Now, add to that the Infinite Dragons actually showing up in battle for Azeroth to kill the Time Weavers, who are some of the few remaining people who could actually fix the timeline, and you have a recipe for some awesome time travel content. I mean, if a Dragon Isles expansion is going to have a full revamp of time walking that gets everybody excited, it just makes sense with the lore, right? Another point to make here is that Morozond currently exists somewhere outside of time. And this could feed into some of the recent revelations of, you know, the first ones and all the more complex cosmic forces, so they could do some stuff there. Next, we've got the Chromatic Dragonflight, a wild experiment by Nefarian that was quickly ended in vanilla. But one actually showed up with the Black Dragons on the island expeditions of BFA. Further, their strongest member, Chromatus, was never destroyed. He was just imprisoned, which is a little bit worrying because it's actually said that he is destined to bring an end to the Dragonflights. Once again, then just Black Dragons turning up everywhere, you know? We have Rathian, who, outside of Ebonhorn, we thought was the last Black Dragon. But we've actually seen loads of his kin on island expeditions. And when we came back from those island expeditions with some spooky scales from dragonflights we thought long dead, Rathian's attendants told us that Rathian was off searching for the Dragon Isles himself. So there is clearly a connection here between the resurgence of just generally antagonistic dragons and then also Rathian searching for the Dragon Isles. We've essentially got all of our mysteries, our cast of villains, our heroes. It's just all set up. And you may think this doesn't line up with the lore because, yeah, as far as we know, we've mostly put a stop to all those antagonistic flights. But when asked about the dragons in a Legion interview, Ian began by explaining that to bring Illidan back into the game, they needed to do some light touch massaging of some past events. He then explained that, yeah, they need to look at the dragon's story to give them a satisfying reintroduction. A little bit of that happened in Battle for Azeroth. And everything we've talked about, including that BFA stuff, that could be the light touch sort of foregrounding needed to set up our discovery of the Isles. So the big question here is, what are the Dragon Isles all about anyway? We don't have many frames of reference here, but what we do know is fascinating. So first, the obvious, dragons. This could be their homeland. It could be where proto-drakes first came to be. I mean, their origin is very messy canonically. There is some stuff there that feels out of date from Bran about them perhaps coming from like elemental dragons. So there's totally room for light touch retcons or recontextualizations, I suppose. As for what the place could look like, there's so many ways they could do it. I mean, one of them is quite simply just theming zones after the dragon flights. You could do that. And just thinking about why it's so mysterious, well, Rathian is convinced that the other flights are keeping him ignorant of its location. Now, if I was to go a little bit more into the Old God angle again, it was originally intended to be an Old God zone, the Dragon Isles. Some of the earlier stuff from, I think it's like the alpha or beta client of like original WoW, have like the big squid temple building. There's also the big squid temple in the concept art, the only concept art we have for this zone. Now, that was sort of realized in the Shrine of Storms, which was indeed infested with Old Gods. So it could actually be that Blizzard have taken the Old God lore out of the Dragon Isles and put it in Stormsong. Or maybe Stormsong is just hinting to our future. But either way, current canon is that the dragons basically didn't help Rathian with that search. And that there could be an Old God link in the Dragon Isles, but that perhaps Blizzard moving the Old God stuff over to Stormsong means that they're trying to free up the Dragon Isles for something else. But then again, if there was an Old God connection, that would have made a lot of sense if patch 8.3 was going to bring in the Dragon Isles, and when you look at the 8.3 that we actually got, well, you will have noticed it didn't have a big zone. It was pretty much a lot of asset reuse, which kind of makes you think they had to scrap some plans for the Dragon Isles, and that maybe it was more Old God related. That's the best that I can puzzle through it anyway. In a recent tweet, Christy Golden all but confirmed that Old Gods would kind of be back. And indeed, in interviews in the past, Blizzard have been very, very wink, wink, nudge, nudge, oh, where does an Old God go when it dies? In response to people talking about N'Zoth dying. So, yeah, they're going to come back. They may not be in the same form, but they will be back, and that has been communicated to us in an intentional manner. So, the Old Gods are in the ground, but their many servants within the Dragonflights have returned. Maybe they're talking about a dawn of twilight. Maybe there's a return of Morozond. A lot of things can go on there with dragons connected to Old Gods. If they wanted to set up a return of the Old Gods, or maybe a full escalation towards a full Void incursion, then the Dragon Isles could play a pivotal role. Again, what is that dark secret at the heart of the Isles? We do not know. You could easily assume they're just a natural creature of Azeroth, but so many creatures on Azeroth have ended up being shaped by a cosmic force in some way. Apparently, dragons may have came from elemental drakes. That was Bran speculating, so how would that have happened? Because there's also stuff saying that they maybe share ancestry with griffins and some other creatures. In which case, you're just like, what? How does this work? How does this make sense? Do you have some weird thing of the old gods? I don't know, you could go completely bonkers with a soft retcon, couldn't you? Something like the old gods tried to curse of flesh as a test, some sort of stoned, or yeah, like a stone drake, and that actually turned into a fleshy proto-drake, and that happened in the Dragon Isles, and maybe that's part of the reason why the dragons basically don't talk about it and try to hush it up. I mean, who the hell knows, basically? The canon is unclear, so who knows, maybe there is something about the old gods in the creation of these dragons. I mean, why did Tyr take such a personal interest in the proto-drakes? And why was Odin so pissed off about it? And pissed off about dragons? Indeed, Galakrond has even got some really weird, spooky, deathy connections that we talked about on one of our Patreon podcasts a while ago. That's something we've talked about before with Odin, but if we're talking about light touch retcons or just diving a bit deeper into what could be, well, what could the Dragon Isles change or add to the dragon lore? And that's what brings me to the cosmic point here, where when you think about the dragons and the cosmic forces that Blizzard are so interested in now, I mean, the flights are strange. The reds are aspected to life on Azeroth, but the green flight is aspected to the pure cosmic force of light. That's weird. The bronze, over time, a part of Arcane, which is Order and the Titans, but also the blues, who are arcane magic, which is also the thing of Order and the Titans. Then, of course, we've seen flights corrupted by Void, Fel, Death, and more. What better cauldron of cosmic forces could you have than the Dragon Isles? And there would be all this cool old god lore going on anyway, so it is like a Pandora's box. You can't put the cosmic stuff back in the box. So how about setting it up somewhere where we can sort of dive down deep into it, enjoy it, while also going around killing dragons for sweet loot in a very Warcrafty fashion? We've had so many interactions with dragons in the past, I think this would just be a great time for Blizzard to really dive into and improve their storytelling ability and the telling of the dragon stories in the game. A little bit in location then, some reality before we wrap things up. So, in the early maps, the Dragon Isles were always quite small and to the west of Quel'Thalas. Well, knock them a little bit more into the sea, make them a bit larger, and you run out of space. So maybe push them up north, and there you go, you're kind of in luck. So it'd be near enough the Eastern Kingdoms to have a Lordaeron B-plot if you really wanted to, and it's close enough to Northrend to basically have ancient Proto-Drake migration to Northrend makes sense. I mean, you then have to wonder, like, if, Wyrmrest Temple and all of that is set up in Dragonblight, were the dragons kind of driven out of the Dragon Isles? Maybe there's something there of the dragons trying to reclaim their ancient ancestral home. Of course, they could always just scrap the location of the Isles, or really our current conceptions of it. They could just say that those early rumors were just that and place it somewhere differently entirely. I mean, if I was to do that, maybe I'd set it to the east of the Eastern Kingdoms, off the map. Maybe I'd slap a Titan facility in there, give us a good reason for all of the secrecy, and bam, away you go. I mean, Blizzard and Mysteries, though, maybe let's not have too much of that. We've got enough already, but I think, as you can see, this could easily fit into the map. It's the sort of thing that, just like with the Broken Isles, can be made up to have multiple zones. I mean, it has always been the Dragon Isles, right? So that's our exploration of the Dragon Isles and a bit of the more modern lore knocking around with the dragons. I think it's all quite possible, and some things have been directly foreshadowed. I mean, we have heard nothing about the Isles since Battle for Azeroth. We've obviously heard nothing in Shadowlands. Ysera has had her own story, but that's kind of her own thing. But going there is a feasible thing. I mean, first up, I think it wouldn't be unreasonable to say they probably worked on it for patch 8.3 at some stage as a companion zone, or, a real, like an in-game zone to go along with an Ny'alotha raid. So that maybe means they have some assets, some pre-production and things like that in the works. The second point, then, is that the Dragon Isles does sound like a good way to serve up a very traditional slice of Warcraft, which could be what they need just now, but also in a way that still does let them push their more spooky technical cosmic story forward. The other clear option, of course, for a next expansion is Light versus Void, or maybe just Light. Honestly, both of which would be cool. I mean, I think if we get Light, or Light versus Void, or Dragon Isles, or just some sort of broad return to Azeroth, I think that's just going to go down well with people. So I'd love to hear from you what your ideas for a journey to the Dragon Isles would actually be. What do you think the big secret that the Dragon Isles won't tell Rathian about is? And with that said, a big thank you to Skillshare for supporting today's video. Of course, head up that link down below for more. And thank you to you for watching. I'll see you next time.